Hello, this is Pharmacopium, and I wanted to highlight some different approaches that I've taken in comparison to Tsukimi for the Barrier Invocation Dual Caster Pyromantic Pact Infernalist build. So I'm going to start with a map showcase just in case somebody's unfamiliar with the build. If you want more intricacies about how the build works, I recommend looking at Tsukimi's channel. He's made several attempts to explain it, along with a spreadsheet and many tools. So look to him for information on specifics about how the build works. But in the map, I'm going to activate Demon Form, cast an expensive spell to get my Infernal Flame up, finish that off, and then now I can start casting Barrier Invocation, and it self-loops and deals a bunch of damage. So I'm going to go kill a bunch of stuff like this. I'm occasionally pressing my life flask like every 2 to 3 seconds at the beginning of the map. That matters a lot initially and not as much later. Because the life flask actually queues throughout the map, so if you spam your life flask, like press it several times while not at max life, I believe that while you're taking self damage in this manner, that the excess duration for your use life flask will actually queue up, and by the end of the map you can go minutes without needing to press your life flask while still being able to spam Barrier Invocation. I do not think that is focused on enough in other explanations of how the build works, which creates a sense that you have to constantly be managing the exact perfect timing on your life flask, and then you might require a macro or something like that to make this work. That is not the case. You don't really need to micromanage it beyond the beginning of the map. So, like by now, I have a system worked out where I just dash through the map, because dash feels really good on Demon Form. And then every second or third dash, I use my life flask, and that is enough to queue up many life flask usages to give me recover later on. So the main differences of what I am doing differently than Tsukimi's build, which I fully ripped off, so I'll leave a link to his, like one of his more recent comprehensive videos about how it works in my description below. But it mostly comes down to tree pathing and some decisions that I made to have less ES on purpose to make the build requirements easier to fulfill, so that I could eventually pivot this into going into crit, which I'm not going to explain. The crit variant that I have in mind involves power treads and a +1 max power charge. Damn it, I'm explaining. But anyway, it's a power charge crit variant that needs some specific gear pieces that makes resistances, recovery, and all these things balancing, and still having room for all that crit and power charge difficult to fit. So I wanted to see how efficiently I could achieve all the benchmarks needed to make the Barrier Invocation Dual Caster Infernalist Pyromantic Pact build work, and came up with this, which I think is a really good solution. So I'm going to clear this map and kind of yap for a little bit while I finish that. But as you can see, like it's not taking up like 100% mental bandwidth to remember to not die while playing this build. Like it works. It is very comfy. I do not feel like I'm in any danger at all in almost any situation. I've done like a full difficulty simulacrum on this, and other than having to micromanage demon form stacks while picking up loot, not really an issue at all. So you can see I'm at like 216 stacks right now, and that's a lot of damage. That's 18% increased damage per stack. So this boss is going to get deleted. Like, easy. Okay, so that's a map. Let's go over the passive tree to look at what I'm doing differently to get less ES and still feel okay. So the core of it is Subterfuge Mask. So just background, Tsukimi comes up this way, he grabs this, it goes this way, comes over here, makes an incursion here to Hail Traveler, goes farther south, makes an incursion here to Potent Concoctions and Lasting Concoctions, and then comes over here to the farthest point from his start, which is Oasis. Oasis is also the farthest point from my start. However, I am making a forking tree that forks right here. And the reason for that is at one point I needed these energy nodes, so I needed to come up here, so it's convenient to be there in case I make gear changes later that require those. This is a very efficient node that's very hard to get a Megalomaniac for, so those are reasons to go up there. And then finally, Heavy Frost hits ignore non-negative elemental resistances of frozen enemies. You saw the boss, he was frozen. Res doesn't matter. So plus 50% monster mod scaled up by map modifier effect, don't care. So why am I going down this way? Subterfuge, Mask, gives me some flat evasion. So my helmet is kind of mid. It's got rarity and some crit chance on it though. But instead of life on this, what I'd like to have is just even more energy shield, so I can get more flat evasion out of my helmet. And then I scale the flat evasion there by going for energy shield nodes that are also evasion rating nodes. So that is giving me just very minimal investment. So you can see the things I put into scaling my energy shield are 1, 2, 3 points there. And then I've taken 1, 2, 3 points there. 2, 3, so I'm at 9 points now. And then technically I would consider this traveling up here, so that's 11, 12. And then I need these int nodes actually, I believe. Actually I don't. Anyway. So, or maybe I did at one point. But, anyway, I just saw something I need to, or I guess I didn't like that. Okay. Sorry, I saw something inefficient while I was looking at this and talking. So, a little bit of evasion, giving me 30% evasion, 36% evasion here, with the bare minimum amount of evasion investment is actually really efficient for counteracting wanting to go for a goal energy shield and life pool of 6,000 to 7,000. I would love to have more than that, but I need to figure out how to make the most out of that amount, because that is the most efficient amount to make Pyromantic Pact work with Barrier Invocation, because more than that increases the self-damage you take, which increases the amount of max fire res you need, or increases the amount of life recovery from your flask that you need. And those two things are point-intensive problems to solve, and I'm trying to find efficient ways to use the points so that I can eventually have enough points to do some stuff with crit. So that's how I came to this setup. So the other benefits of coming through here are that it takes you right next to Staunching, which is great, plus 0.1 charge per second, and some strength if you need it. Combat Alchemy, really great. Blur, really great. Cautious Concoctions, really great. So Tsukimi, the farthest he comes up from this direction, because he doesn't come through here, he comes over the top like this and comes up. So he comes up and gets this, but it's so point inefficient for him to flask or to path through all this that he doesn't come this way. And like Staunching is way out of reach. Like maybe if you got it on a Megalomaniac, you would take that. But between Staunching and Hail Traveler, I've got 0.2 charges per second. And then between Combat Alchemy and Savoring, I've got 30% chance for flasks I use to not consume charges. And the combination of those two things makes me able to sustain flasks for minutes at a time without killing monsters. And it's just, it feels like really efficient pathing. The other thing that I'm doing differently is instead of using Against the Darkness up here in this spot and taking 1, 2, 3 notables that give ES, I kind of wanted to be able to choose notables that don't give ES, because increasing my max fire res reduces the self-damage that I take, which is something that I would want to do if I want to take less self-damage. So having the option to get more max fire res being coupled with getting more energy shield, which causes this self-hit fire damage that I'm taking to be higher, is a little bit strange. It's kind of hard to describe, but having those things uncoupled makes it easier to tinker with. And this is a really good spot for it. So I'm using Warm the Heart to solve freeze, Fan the Flames to reduce my ignite duration, and Fuel the Earth as an efficient node, Catalysis or Catalysis for 5% Fizz taken as Ellie, getting 1% regen here, and then 3 points are kind of inefficient here, but that gets me one more notable for 6 total down here. Solving freeze with Warm the Heart is probably the most efficient thing that's going on in this. It's a lot more efficient than Icebreaker, which is 4 points. So overall, I think that this package is comparable to Tsukimi's. It has less jewel requirements. Let me hover on my jewels real quick. So life on kill is kind of a nice QOL thing for demon form. Sustain. Meta gain is really all I need on this. Meta gain is again all I really need on this, and then I've got 2% life on kill. Energy shield from equipped focus is on both of these, but is actually, or is on one of them, but is actually not something I want. And then this is my Megalomaniac. So since I'm not pathing up where, I'll come back to the Megalomaniac, but since I'm not going where Tsukimi goes up here, taking Soul Bloom by pathing to it is not really an option, but I need that 15% more multiplier. So I had to get it on either my Megalomaniac or Anointed on my Amulet, and it involves a Distilled Emotion of Isolation, which is like really expensive, so I did not want to anoint it. So I got it on Megalomaniac instead. This comes with Asceticism, which is giving me some stun threshold, which is nice, just a bonus node there. And then on my Amulet, I anoint Hard to Kill, which is what Tsukimi does as well. So I think that's pretty much it. Anyway, I'm not really in a position to answer questions about the build. I don't check my YouTube very much in terms of people interacting with me on this account. But I did want to give an alternative perspective of Tsukimi's build with the alternate pathing, incorporating some evasion into the build, and moving toward an ideal of not having the maximum amount of energy shield, but instead the most efficient amount of 6,000, so that it frees up you to optimize the build in other directions besides survivability, like crit later. Finally, I did want to address some pros and cons between this kind of Pyromantic Pact self-damage Barrier Invocation build and the alternative form of Pyromantic Pact where you use reduced mana, reduce maximum mana modifiers on gear in your tree to not have any mana, so you don't take self-damage from Pyromantic Pact. I don't think that the reduced mana approach is efficient. I think that there's enough optimization and improvement that can be made on the Barrier Invocation that iteration on this is probably time spent better than on the reduced mana cost, but I'm really interested to see what directions that goes in. It feels like, just based on the problems needing to be solved here and the benefits that you get from it, it's more worthwhile to do, and it's not quite all the way solved yet. I think that there are still efficiencies to be gained with this archetype. So the main advantages I see is that this is more mobile, it's better autonomy over where our damage is being applied because you can aim the comets. It's faster because Demon Form is fast. It's insane percent damage because of Demon Form stacks. It's got better gloves, helmet, tree, amulet, and jewels that are all more flexible, give better bonuses, and can accommodate rarity a lot more readily, especially the helmet and the amulet. Not being able to put rarity on those things in the reduced mana version is just bad. And then, like I mentioned before, this has a theoretical huge aspirational gear potential if going crit with Comet. So we path next to a lot of crit nodes, and you need to be really efficient while fulfilling the requirements for recovery, max res, life, and ES pool minimums to have leftover points and leftover gear modifiers to go for huge crit with something like power charge stacking and power tread boots. This is TMI at this point on the crit thing, but I think that there are avenues to go down on a high investment version of the Barrier Invocation build that are not explored yet, that are worth exploring and worth explaining. So that's my take on it, on the different ways to use Infernalist for a spellcaster that is not using Archmage, because it seems like there's 3 options for not using for casters right now, which is Archmage or Barrier Invocation Infernalist or minus mana Infernalist. So out of those 3, I think that Barrier Invocation is the most interesting, has the most fun problems to solve, and has the highest ceiling. So just wanted to make a video about that. But again, this is Pharmacopium, which I guess is my handle. It's a pharmacy pun. But that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say, but feel free to leave comments. I'll respond if I have something witty to say, but thanks for watching.